This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be held virtually in accordance with the social distancing requirements and Governor Pritzker's executive orders. We have a total number of people who can gather at City Hall for the meeting today. So accordingly, the opportunity to view and participate. I'm getting some feedback. If you're just joining, please mute yourselves. Thank you. Members of the public are urged to call in and participate. Either send your public comments by email, if possible, or call in and make yourself heard when asked for comments. I'd like to start with the roll call, please, Clerk.
Mayor Brummel?
Here.
Alderman Anderson?
Here.
Alderman Ashauer?
Here.
Alderman Berry?
Here.
Alderman Dabulos?
Here.
Alderman Goodman?
Here.
Alderman Crucial?
Here.
Alderman Widener?
Here.
Alderman Wilson?
Here.
Okay. Staff? City Administrator Coakley?
Here.
Assistant City Administrator White?
Here.
Finance Director Dahlstrand?
Here.
Police Chief Toronto?
Here.
Community and Economic Development Director Menser?
Here.
Public Works Director Kukler? Senior Planner Domavasova?
I'm here.
Senior Accountant Leo Beltran?
Here.
Clerk Larson?
Here.
And Deputy Clerk Gravetti, I'm here. Is there anyone else I missed? Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now is the time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask you to say it silently to yourself as I say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now is the time that we set aside for citizens' comments. We will begin with anyone who is present at City Hall and wishes to make a comment.
No one is here wishing to make a comment.
Thank you. Now we'll hear any verbal comments from the public who are participating by phone. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak, please announce yourself with your name and address. Speak slowly and clearly so we can capture your information. And once we have everyone who's wishing to speak identified, I'll call on you one by one. Does anyone wish to speak? All right. It doesn't appear we have any call-in comments. Are there any email comments that have been received?
We did not receive any today.
Okay. Just to make sure that we know, once we conclude citizens' comments, there will not be an opportunity again in the meeting for the public to comment. All right. Now we move on to officials and staff comments, and we'll start with the mayor.
Madam Chairman, nothing to add except that I would like to note that it's a nice evening to have a virtual meeting.
I would agree with that, yes. Not having to go out in a snowstorm is one silver lining here. Thank you, Mayor. Clerk, any comments? Is she still muted, or no comments from the clerk?
No comment, thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Larson. Treasurer Brenner.
I believe he's absent tonight, Madam Chairman.
Absent tonight. All right, let's go through the aldermen one by one, beginning with Alderman Anderson.
No comments this evening.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
I have no comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Dabulos.
I do not have any comments tonight, thanks.
Thank you. My comment would be the same as the mayor's. I'll second his comment. Alderman Krischel.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderman Widener.
No comments this evening, thank you.
Alderman Wilson.
Just one comment. I hope all public works have the snow plows there and all ready to go. But other than that, good evening.
Yes, good luck to Public Works dealing with this storm. Okay, thank you. Now the city administrator, if you have any comment.
Just a quick reminder to everyone in the public that the DuPage County Health Department has all the information on up to date, whatever the scheduling is and plans for vaccine distribution for COVID-19. The city is working to update some of its website page. We stopped doing that a while back when there's a lot of conflicting information coming out, but we will work on getting that back up to date. But we are posting things on the Facebook, city's Facebook page, but it refers you back to the county, and the county will have links to the CDC and the Illinois Department of Public Health. That's the best and most up-to-date information. Nobody knows exactly the details of the vaccine distribution. That is going through some changes, especially given the change in Washington. There's some new people coming on board, and there will be some updates, but just keep an eye on the DuPage County Health Department site. There's links for everything, and they will have and continue to have the most up-to-date information. Thank you.
Thank you, city administrator. That's a good reminder. All right, let's start with the business of tonight's meeting. We're going straight to the consideration of fiscal year 2022 Tourism and Arts Commission Hotel Tax Grant recommendations. And this will be presented by our Deputy Finance Director, Leo Beltran.
Thank you. I'd like to give a special thanks today to Assistant City Administrator White and Finance Director Dahlstrand, as well as Tech Chair Monica Johnson, assisted me with my first year of Tech Liaison. Tourism and Arts Commission has been hard at work since September, reviewing the recommendations and finalized their recommendations on January 14th for your consideration today. With that said, I'd like to introduce Monica Johnson, the Tourism and Arts Chair. She'll be going a little bit in depth about the recommendations that you have before you today.
All right, thank you, Leo. So on behalf of the Tourism and Arts Commission, also known as TAC, I am pleased to present a recommendation for the fiscal year 2022 Hotel Tax Grant Program for your review and discussion. So this year, TAC had 11 applications to consider for 11 projects, all of which will be updated versions of previously hosted events. Unlike other years, there were no applications for first-time events. Two groups that normally submit applications, the Warrenville Public Library and the WMC Theater, did not submit applications this year. Grant requests from the proposed fiscal year 22 projects totaled just over $95,000, which is a significant decrease from last year's requests totaling nearly $155,000 across 17 projects. After a review of this year's applications, a total of $93,769.18 is being recommended for funding these 11 projects, which is within the $100,000 budget that council set for TAC. TAC believes the funding recommendation will help to provide a variety of events for the enjoyment of local residents and out-of-town guests, which we hope will again be supporting our local businesses and hotels once it is safe again to do so. COVID-19, as you know, continues to change the way event planning looks, and last summer, TAC added a question onto the grant application requesting information from applicants as to how their event would be able to be adapted if gathering was restricted at the time of their event. TAC took that information into consideration when recommending funding for the fiscal year 22 events. The largest grant recommended is again for Warrenville and Bloom at $32,504.19, followed by grants to CoffeeCon at $25,000, the Park District's Art on the Prairie at $17,402, and the Park District's Fall Fest at $8,936.75. The 7 remaining grant awards are for less than $2,500 each. TAC finalized its review of the applications, as Leo said, at the January 14th meeting, and unanimously passed the motion approving the applications for recommendation to all of you. Just as you see them in the chart in your packet that's labeled Exhibit 1. So would you like me to go over the chart?
Sure, a little bit of information would be great.
Okay. It won't take as long as usual since we have about 7 or 8 less applications. So we'll begin with CoffeeCon, which again requested $25,000. And we voted to recommend the full $25,000. It's for one amount that is the amount that IBEW charges them to host the event, or their venue charge. Artist in Residence is again requesting $1,500, and we're recommending the full amount. Spring Tea, let's see, requested $800, and we are recommending to award $650 this time. What we did was take out the travel fee for the speaker. She's just coming from Lincoln Park near Chicago, so we figured we could take out the travel fee, which we have done before. The Cemetery Walk, again, requested $225 for their musician, and we're recommending to cover that full amount. Paint the Ville was a new event last summer, and it was a success. They are requesting $1,840, and TAC is recommending to cover that full amount as well. The mobile tour is once again being done by the Historical Society, and this year I believe they saw a record number of people taking advantage of touring Warrenville. They can do that from, being socially distanced. So that was a fantastic opportunity for people. So they requested $2,200, and we are recommending to award them $2,112. And the difference was they wanted to add a little bit in case of increase. The company that they do business with to create the tour hasn't raised costs in a long time. But we voted to give them the exact amount that's on their estimate. Art on the Prairie will again happen. The Park District has requested $7,402, and we're recommending that full amount. And Fall Fest, the Park District requested $8936.75, and we're recommending that full amount as well. Lunchtime Live was a new program that the Park District began this past summer, and they were able to have the program by keeping the children socially distanced. They requested $2,092.12, and we're recommending that full amount. Movies in the Park requested a little over $1,500. We're also recommending that full amount. And Warrenville and Bloom requested, actually it was $32,504.19, and we're recommending that full amount. Does anybody have any questions on any of this so far?
We'll go through the list of aldermen and see if anyone has questions for you, starting with Alderman Anderson.
So I don't have any questions on the events being proposed or the dollar amounts. Actually, it's an exciting list. It's my first time hearing the report out from the committee, and it's just impressive, and it's exciting, and it's fun to look forward to these, and it just feels like everyone's being wise in the amount they're asking for. I think my one question was, I don't know who this goes to, maybe to our finance director. Yeah, I think we saw at our last city council meeting that the hotel tax fund was going to be down about 70%. And so how do we think about this number? Is the 100,000 going to fit into the budget effectively next year, given the state of the fund?
Finance Director Dahlstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, staff has been in an ongoing effort to review this. The request for next year, there will be sufficient funding within that fund to take care of all of the events being recommended. It's the out years that we're looking at that may become more problematic. And we'll go over that more when we go through our budget, but there is sufficient funding for next year's recommended program as presented.
Yes, we'll go to City Administrator Coakley for more.
Thank you. To tag on to your response to that question and what the finance director just said, the long-range financial planning work just began last Friday. That's finance director and I with Alderman Goodman and Alderman Wilson. That was one of the things we looked at. We're going to be looking at the entire city fiscal matters going forward and bringing back recommendations as we go along. We did specifically discuss that very point. I will state, only speaking for myself, I think it's appropriate to continue with these grants as they've been applied for. The council already reduced the amount of money allocated for fiscal 22 grants. And the people have, all the different groups, organizations, individuals have put a lot of effort into these. We will have the money to cover them. That noted, there's money in the fund balance still. That noted, going forward, we're still working on the forecast for next year's revenue and then trying to forecast the future. It's, as you can imagine, very tricky right now. The things we do know from economists and from business industry and from DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau expertise, that business travel will likely not return for at least 6 months to a year to where it was, and then only at about 70%. Hotels are looking at occupancies around that level for the next year and a half or so. That's the best information we have now, so we'll be using that for projections. We also are likely to have probably one less hotel in town. One of the Hyatts is looking to convert to a different use. So we're going to have less money going forward, whatever combination of those things do actually occur, and we'll keep you up to date as we go along. So we'll have to be making some hard decisions in the budget process because, as you know, it's not just the community events like these great activities that we support, the city supports with this money, and also 4th of July, holidays, summer days, and some other grants that are on the agenda tonight. But it's also things like the capital maintenance replacement fund and the general fund. So we'll be making recommendations, working with the two aldermen in that long-range financial planning, even for the budget. Kevin and I will be presenting those things in the budget, which you'll see in about 5 weeks. We hope to have a final draft version of the budget, not an adopted budget, that's your job, to present, and then we'll have a budget meeting during March to go over those. But I would, back to the main question, there will be money that can be allocated for these grants, and I would suggest that and recommend that to proceed with these, and we'll be looking at other future reductions in costs to make sure everything ties out going forward.
I appreciate the discussion and I'm fully supportive.
Thank you. Going on now to Alderman Ashour.
Thanks for all the hard work done on these events. I support them. You know, obviously the money's a problem. We may have to pull back next year, but as long as we have it this year, then I think the community is going to need it going into this summer. So I support it.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Yes, I would like to thank the city administrator and the finance director for looking into this, because we were a little concerned as to what we would be able to do as part of the Tourism and Arts Commission. You know, what items would actually get funded, or if any of them would even get funded. So we were a little leery. So I know this will lighten our hearts. And I think that the community will definitely need, like you said, to have these events go forward after this very long, hard winter. Hopefully the summer will come around and a lot of people will be vaccinated and we'll be able to get together a little bit more. So thank you for doing that hard work, Finance Director and City Administrator. And thank you to all the Tourism and Arts Commission members. They work very hard at this. So I want to give them a big shout out. So thank you.
Yes, and she didn't mention that she's also a member of that. So thanks as well. Thank you, Alderman Berry. Moving on to Alderman dabulos.
Thank you. Yes, I would also just like to thank all the TAC people that have worked on this, to the staff that has helped them. I will reiterate what Alderman Anderson said, how many people in our community really, really have a good time with these events. And as somebody else mentioned, we really need to have things that we have a good time. And I am quite impressed with how creative some of these organizations have been. Trying to move from a regular event to a virtual event takes a lot of thought and creativity and figuring things out. And that's happened several times in this. So I'm very excited to have these events begin. And I just want to express my appreciation to everybody that's involved, staff and team members. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question, and I think it's just a bookkeeping matter, and I feel like I may have even asked it before, is it says in the memo that we try and ensure that no one category would be awarded more than 50% of the TAC grant funding, and that this recommendation adheres to this policy. But when you add up the different categories, the events category says it's actually 74%. And I was wondering why so much of the Warrenville and Bloom funds are counted towards events instead of arts or one of the other categories. I think it has been that way historically, but if there is a policy, then shouldn't we just do the bookkeeping a little bit differently?
You want me to answer that, Monica?
Yes.
So Warrenville and Bloom, their event includes, it's been historically that way. It includes a lot of purchases of flowers and that sort of item as far as their event goes. And that is the bulk of their expense. So historically, that's how it's been. It hasn't really changed too much from that. Increase and decrease here and there, but other than that, that's how it's been for the most part. We try to adhere to the policy as clearly as possible, but for Warrenville and Bloom, their main event is the cost, the event's cost of it. So,
but it seems that promoting city beautification promotes tourism, and that, you know, aesthetic beauty is also one of the arts. I mean, there are more things, I would say, about flowers that would belong in the other two categories, since that is the main cost, flowers and the watering. And since we have a policy to not have more than 50% in one category, and the events category has 74%, then we shouldn't say we're following the policy for now.
yeah, based on how we categorize the events and the cost, that's where the events lie within the policy right now. So. But there may be a need to update that a little bit more as well going forward. So
This is Alderman Berry. Can I make a comment, please?
Certainly.
I think we could probably take some of that money in order to even out these percentages. Take some of the money from the events for Warrenville and Bloom and put them in the arts, because flowers and beautification, that could possibly be part of the arts. The tourism, I don't know if it would fit in there too much, but I think probably if the council is concerned, we could probably take some of that money and move it into the arts. I don't know what Chairman Johnson is thinking.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the way that the categories are divided up, and A lot of times, we have a little bit more of Warrenville and Bloom's, many more of their line items that go for capital, because until this year, they were adding planters every year and, additional locations for flowers every year. So that required capital items, but this year they are not adding any new locations for the flowers. So the bulk of the expenses are, again, like Leo said, watering and, soil and flowers and things like that. So I was trying to look and see if they could be moved someplace else.
I'm not questioning any of their expenses. I'm just questioning our policy,
right,
which says we shouldn't have more than 50% in one category, and then the fact that that category has 75%. So this memo should not say we're following that policy when we're not. And so either we should follow the policy, or we should say, hey, we don't want to follow this policy. It's not necessary. One or the other.
Well, two different things. Warrenville and Bloom, it's kind of working itself into being one of those events, kind of like the 4th of July and things that eventually, spin off out of our group and into city things. So we've kind of toyed with that a couple times, as is that something that we need to ask about that or not, because it isn't really falling completely into what we do. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is kind of all at once swirling in my head is I know that before, maybe 5 years ago, we changed the way that we were doing the breakdown, because it was kind of prohibitive. It was kind of paralyzing us in some ways. And so probably this is kind of our off time once we make the recommendations, and then it becomes, a quieter time for TAC, and we do address other things. That will be something that, we could look into if there's a better way for us to do this, or if there's a different way Warrenville and Bloom could perhaps structure their request to fit into this. I don't know if they really are going to be able to change. So then that would mean, we should probably in our off season take a look at the policy and see if there's a way that we can make it kind of all encompassing for the groups that we have and future groups.
Okay, I don't think it's very important right now, and certainly not a problem for approving this request. I think that the recommendations that you put forward all sound great and worthy of funding these events, and I just am interested in this question for future discussion. That's all.
It's a good question.
Okay. Let's move on to Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. I have no questions. My only comment would be that when you're faced with trying to figure out what to cut out and reduce your budget, it's always difficult. And I think the TAC this thoughtful recommendation. It's good to see still being able to hold these events and have a variety of events for people to enjoy. I think that's good. So, yep, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Thank you. And I want to thank TAC also for assembling the recommendation and recommendations, and also going through the whole process. I know it's an enduring process and it takes a really long time. To thank you for all the members for doing that. I share Alderman Anderson's concerns and in the future of balancing the right amount of events for our citizens with the amount of money that we have in the budget available. Since some of the hotel and motel also gets diverted to the CMRP funds, I think it's important to keep a close eye on that. And if there's any way of providing advance notice to the TAC group prior to their deliberation of events next year, what the estimates will be, so they know as they get started, what the funding reductions might be. I think that might assist them and make their process easier rather than finding out at the tail end. I'm sure there's probably something already in the works for that. And also just as much as we can, now that we've committed to these events, finding a way to promote and advertise these events on the city's calendars, websites, and the other means that we have available. I think it would be great so that we can boost attendance and also in these times give our residents a broad list of things that they have to look forward to as these events come up over the season. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Wilson.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, Chair Johnson?
I don't think so. In the rest of the memo, just kind of, for anyone who is new, it'll, goes through the different events and just gives a small synopsis on, what they're about. And I didn't go through them this time because we, usually only cover brand new events, and this year we don't have any new events. So let me know if you have any questions, about any of the recurring events. Otherwise, that's it.
Okay. If there are any questions, please speak up. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Berry. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council accept the Tourism and Arts Commission recommendations and award $93,769.18 in hotel tax grant funding to various applicants for fiscal year 2022 per the Tourism and Arts Commission recommendation memo dated January 14th, 2021.
Second, Alderman Ashe.
Motion by Alderman Berry, second by Alderman Ashe. Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman dabulos? Alderman dabulos?
What? Aye? Did you just call my name?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
thought I already said it. Yeah, aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for all your work, and thanks to TAC from all of us.
But I'll pass that along. Thank you.
All right, we're moving right along to the discussion of the Warren Tavern fiscal year 2022 funding assistance request. And we will go back to Senior Accountant Beltran.
Hello. Yes, before you have the funding request for fiscal year 22. Again, the tavern is asking for $10,000 this year as well. I'd like to introduce Richard from the tavern. He's the chairman. Richard?
Yes, I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hear you. It's a little hard to hear you.
Let me pull the mic a little closer. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting us to participate this evening. And I would like to compliment everyone who's attending this remarkable meeting. The volunteers, the city officials, the staff members. This is just amazing to me. Having endured, let's say, a more primitive era of such meetings. But at any rate, you do have, I believe, our proposal for this coming year. And perhaps I could just review, we were looking to finance some new screen doors. There are 4 entrances, all of which are guarded by screen doors that have deteriorated badly. So we would like to replace those screen doors with something more durable. It's an aluminum product rather than the wood, which has deteriorated in the weather very badly over the years. We were looking to re-engineer the sump pump drainage system in the building as well, partly to protect the new floor and partly because those pumps are quite old. They're 20 some years old now, maybe 24 years old. We would like to get some new and higher grade fire extinguishers for the building, 4 of them. It's a relatively small amount, $240. The landscaping is really perhaps a cornerstone of our proposal for this year. We'd like to have the DuPage landscaping people come in and install a row of trees to screen the west exposure of the property and perhaps enhance the plantings around the building. There are no plantings, never have been since the modern era of this building on the south exposure. So it looks a little on the barren side and it's not really very well balanced with what's on the north side of the building. So it's our belief that the proposed expenditure for the sump pumps can be whittled back considerably and perhaps more funding in our plan to enhance the landscaping. We have, I believe you have a copy of the proposal from DuPage Landscaping, and parts of it, particularly on the south side of the building, are optional. Well, if we spend less on the sump pump program, then we could perhaps devote a little more to the landscaping. Finally, I'd like to point out that the arbor, which is a relatively small expense, $450, is really seen as a tool that would help us market this building for rentals to weddings and such occasions. It's turned out that the bridal parties that come through this building and use it are a large part of the rentals that help sustain the building. So we'd like to have this particular arbor, in case you don't have it in front of you, this is the arbor. It's collapsible and can be put away in storage off season. It would be used on the grounds, and it's really a photographic backdrop for wedding parties and family reunions and that sort of thing. So at that point, I guess I'll respond to any questions that anyone has about our proposal and try and get the light out of the background here.
Thank you, Mr. Volkmer. Let's start with Alderman Anderson.
I have no questions at this time. I was naive to the existence of our Warrenville Tavern, and so I've been spending time walking around it, and it's a beautiful building. I look forward to seeing it in the summertime, but I'm supportive.
Well, that requires a personal tour.
Fair enough.
Love to show you around. Just give me a call anytime.
Sounds like a date. Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
My only question is there any chance of getting comparable quotes on the landscaping from some of the local landscapers?
Oh, absolutely. I don't believe that the sources that we proposed are necessarily ironclad. In other words, the same work could be done by a number of different vendors, and we certainly could consult with other sources for the landscaping work.
That's
I
my
particularly, oh, excuse me.
I'd like to see the money spent in town if you can.
Sure. We sought a proposal from this particular contractor because they did such a beautiful job throughout the new subdivision on Stafford Place.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Berry.
I guess I don't really have any questions. It's pretty straightforward as to what it is that they're requesting. I probably would like to see the more landscaping done, but I can understand if you really need to have those sump pumps replaced since you did get some new flooring. So, but it's up to you. You guys are the caretakers of the Warren Tavern, and you know what's best. So, you know, you have to do what you feel is best for the Warren Tavern.
I think we can improve considerably on the cost of the sump pump program. And
okay.
Reallocate or rebalance those funds toward the landscaping.
Very good. I'm in favor of this. That's fine.
Thank you. Alderman Dabulos.
Thank you. This line of trees then is between, it's just before Leona Smith Park, right?
It's to the west toward the river. If you stand in the little...
I must not be holding this right.
This would look directly west. It's a screening backdrop. It's actually an enhancement of some existing trees that are there. These are Norway spruces, I believe, that this particular vendor recommended for that setting. They become quite large and handsome as they age.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out. Okay. The other thing,
if you look west from 2nd Street, across the river, toward the river, that's where they would be located on that map.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So my only thing, and this is just something to ask a landscaper. A few things. I know that these are compact burning bushes, but you got to be careful because burning bushes are invasive now, and people aren't selling them or putting them in, and they're taking them out. Now these are compact, but it's my experience without a lot of maintenance, they can get tall. So I just question, maybe ask, there might be something else, or maybe they have a reason to put those in there because they could overwhelm those hydrangea kind of. But I think it's great that you're doing this landscaping. I think it's also, there may be, if you want more landscaping, I don't know, there may be, and I probably know people that could donate. You know, you want it to fit into the plan, but there's a lot of things that would fit into the plan. So if you run short on money, I mean, it's just a big thing for this town. People just have plants. They grow plants. They love plants. It's part of the ethos of Warrenville, I think. So you might think about that. But this is wonderful. I'm very excited about what you're doing. So thank you for all the work and gathering the information for us.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I think your comments may address the issue of also coordinating what we do with what the city has planned for Leon Schmidt Heritage Park, because we are right on the north end of it, and it surrounds us more or less.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Yes, I had a similar question as Alderman Ashour because of the fire hydrant that said Menards. I know that there are places you can get hardware here in Warrenville. I think certainly one of our TAC grant priorities has always been that when we give money that goes to the grant recipients, we like them to prioritize Warrenville vendors when possible. You know, that's not always the most cost-effective way to do it, so we understand that. But if it's possible, we prefer that our grant money stay in our community. So just please keep that in mind. I'd also like to respond to your remarks about attracting wedding business. I had my wedding shower at the tavern, and we didn't have an arch or anything like that to pose under. All of my photographs from that event are on the inside of the building. I don't think I even took one outside the building. It was a July 4th weekend wedding shower, so I'm sure that it would have been a beautiful day. And I kind of wonder now, if there had been an arch or a very nice landscaping, if we would have done a lot more outdoor pictures at your wonderful historic tavern. So I think that having that option will be nice for future brides having their wedding showers in your facility. So good luck with the work, and I'm in favor. We'll move on to Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. I just had a question about the screen doors. And if there was a reason or a particular that the quote or the recommendation here was for going to this vendor, or it's a pretty expensive screen door and you have to have 4 of them. So I didn't know if there was a reason we went with the Wayfair, or if there was another option. I know you can get full storm doors for less than that, not just a screen.
You can. And this particular model of screen door is sold by a number of vendors. So Wayfair is just one of their outlets. It's an extremely durable, heavy-duty aluminum product that has a kind of vintage look to it. That's always part of our thinking in terms of that building, that it shouldn't have anything too modern attached to it or visible within. So we did a lot of research to find that particular type of door that would blend in with the looks of the building.
Okay.
You can go to Menards and buy a Larson door for a couple $100. It's very durable, and we have them on our own home. But it doesn't appear appropriate for that building. So that's why now we can continue. Before we make any purchase, we'll look sideways at other sources, other doors. Maybe we can get a better buy. It's a little hard to say right at this moment, but that was the thinking behind it.
That's understandable. I just wanted to make sure that, if that was the reason for the aesthetic, that we just.
It was more of a combination of aesthetic considerations and durability. We've had, by the way, this is, I think, the second or third set of screen doors we've had on this building. And the way they make wooden screen doors these days, that's what the place might have had on it in the ancient past. They're finger jointed wood that just deteriorates in the weather and falls apart. They don't make them out of solid wood anymore. And as time has gone by, we found that wooden exterior componentry just doesn't serve this building very well. We had to replace all the doors. We're on our third set of doors, prime doors on the building since it was restored. And these are fiberglass and they're holding up well. The wooden ones didn't hold up at all. 2 sets of previous wooden doors. So that's kind of the theory behind it.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Widener.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your work and involvement on this. My first question might be more directed to staff regarding the taxes, the tax dollars that are listed in your estimate. I just wonder if that can be pulled out and we can eliminate those, because I thought if the city purchased them, we might be able to escape the sales tax portion. I don't know if Administrator Coakley could answer this or someone, but I'm just looking to save money wherever we can.
If I can.
City Administrator.
Thank you. It's easier when you're sitting next to me in the meetings, but it's okay. I would think is under their, they should still be a 501c3 tax exempt entity, so they should be able to buy it without the taxes. I'm assuming, and this is a question that Rich can certainly answer, they probably just got the quotes without dealing with that nuance at this point. But they should be able to do it without the taxes. They would be a tax exempt entity as well.
Actually, through turn of events, the tavern group lost its tax-free status a few years ago, and we are on the track of having it restored this year. So chances are very good that we can obtain these items without paying sales tax within the budget year that we're looking at. It's one of our big projects, by the way, to get back our tax-free 501c3.
Okay. Well, I hope we can do that. And then I was just curious about the landscaping, whether you've developed any kind of aftercare plan or proposal, because once the landscaping is installed, there's going to be a constant effort to maintain it and keep it aesthetic so that, you know, attractive weddings can be held there with the new landscaping. And I just wonder whether there's what the relative costs might be with regard to the landscape installations.
Well, I guess prudent design would be based upon a low level of maintenance, and that has yet to be finalized. So we'd be happy to work with the city on its response to the final plan. We will consult with other vendors of local nature.
So with the landscape aftercare, you would be looking for funds eventually to care for the landscaping, or is there an expectation with the landscaping that the city staff would care for?
Well, as it stands now, the city does mow the grass in all of Leon Park. We have, through the volunteers, done a certain amount of landscape maintenance, but it might fall toward future years of the hotel motel tax proposals to include a maintenance component. That makes good sense to me. There will be replacements necessary of the green goods from time to time, and maintenance through the years. So for the time being, we're mostly concerned about upgrading it with these new components. And most of what's contemplated here is not really high maintenance stuff. I mean, trees need a certain amount of fertilizing and such, but pruning, things like that, we can do ourselves.
I think personally, before landscaping installation takes place, I think it would be good to work together in concert with city staff so that your landscape plan can be teamed together with whatever the overall landscape plan is for Leon Schmidt, and also be combined with developing it as an attractive wedding venue, as well as, you know, accomplishing the other things. I'm not sure there's a volunteer registered landscape architect, but I could just see the need for this. We're talking about a large area, and we're talking about, I think, someone having to come in and care for the landscaping after it's put in the ground. So I think it would be worthwhile to have a kind of a city sign off on this portion of it, so that a cohesive plan is developed for the whole area. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I think all my questions that I had up front have been answered or referred to. Just about the trees that you select too, we got to make sure they're the right kind of trees. I know we had some problems in the past, but other than that, thank you very much for everything you're doing, Richard.
Very welcome. We continually appreciate city support for this project.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Can I make a comment first, Madam Chairman? Mayor
Please
Romo?
do, Mayor.
Just wanted to thank Rich and the Warren Tavern Preservationists, another example of how a group of volunteers comes together year after year to do something that's very beneficial to the community. So Rich, thanks so much, and please thank the rest of the group for us.
I'll pass those thoughts on, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is Alderman Dabulos. Are you waiting for a motion? Okay. I move to accept staff recommendation and authorize the funding of $10,000 in the hotel tax fund proposed FY 2022 budget for upgrades and repairs to the Warren Tavern building, separate from the hotel tax grant program.
Second, Alderman.
Motion by Alderman Dabulos, second by Alderman Anderson. Can we have a roll call, please, clerk?
Alderman Critchell?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Ashaw?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Bell.
We must thank the City Council for its consideration and support.
Thank you. You have a great evening. We are moving on to item number 3, the consideration of the Historical Society request for the director and curator funding for fiscal year 2022. And I'll again go to Mr. Beltran.
Thanks. Before you, you should have a letter from the Historical Society for their fiscal year 22 request to help fund the part-time curator. As for fiscal year 21, they are again asking $20,000 for fiscal year 22 to help fund the curator, part-time curator position. I'm not sure if anyone from the Historical Society is here to answer questions today, but I did invite them, so.
I believe I see a couple of Historical Society representatives. Mr. Sleep or Ms. Phelan, if either of you would like to speak. Mr. Sleep just muted himself. Maybe he thought he was unmuting himself. Okay. I guess maybe they aren't there, or they were and they stepped away.
Hey, Alderman Goodman, I do believe that maybe Mr. Sleep is having an issue with his microphone, but I do, on his behalf and the entire board's behalf, do want to just thank City Council and City staff, as well as just the community for the support they have provided the Historical Society. As everyone has struggled through the year, it's actually been quite difficult, but also a great opportunity for us to be able to pivot and to provide many resources online and see a lot of people find a new interest in Warrenville, and we hope to welcome them to the museum once things are safer for us to do so. But thank you, and we are here if you do have any questions.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll go through the council and see if there are any questions. Again, Alderman Anderson.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Alderman Ashaw.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
No questions, no comments.
Alderman Davalos.
No questions, no comments, but I think this is $20,000 that is very, very, very well spent.
Thank you. I have no questions. Alderman Critchell.
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Alderman Widener.
I have no comments. Thank you.
And Alderman Wilson.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to the Historical Society for funding a wonderful museum, which we will all take more advantage of when it's over, I'm sure. I would entertain a motion.
Alderman dabulos. I move to recommend the City Council approve the Warrenville Historical Society's grant request in the amount of $20,000 from the Hotel Tax Fund to cover the cost of their part-time museum director curator and direct staff to include this funding in the FY 2022 budget.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
We have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please, clerk?
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Dabulos.
Aye.
Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Director Phelan.
Thank you all so much.
All right, item number 4 is the consideration of waiver of the public improvements required by the Warrenville Subdivision Control Ordinance in conjunction with the proposed Minux plat of subdivision 3 South 701 Mignon Drive. We'll go to Senior Planner Domovasola.
Thank you. Okay, this was just mentioned. Mr. Nuck and Mrs. Raymond are going through this subdivision of property, subdivision process with the city to subdivide the property at 3 South 701 Mignon Drive. Warrenville Subdivision Control Ordinance requires certain public improvements to be constructed by a person who is subdividing the property unless this improvement already in place. And these improvements include water and sanitary sewer lines, sidewalks, parkway trees, and various street improvements. The subdividers of the property at 3 South 701 Mignon Drive have requested the city to waive the installation of these required public improvements. And before we go any further, I'd like to share my screen to illustrate the subdivision, which in the agenda packets tonight, you have the more detailed version of the proposed plat of subdivision. But in essence, what's being proposed is the lot that you see outlined in yellow is going to be subdivided into 2 lots, the one fronting Mignon Drive and the other fronting Burke Avenue. And then let's just go over the improvements. So for the lots fronting Mignon Drive, there's really not a whole lot of improvements to be made because they are in place. The roadway is there, sanitary sewer and water main lines are there, available for the future house to connect. And the lot, as you can see, is heavily wooded, so there's trees, as long as they can be preserved during the construction of a house and driveway, they will be counted towards the meeting the requirements of the parkway tree plantings. The sidewalk is not there along Mignon Drive. However, the city does not have any plans for sidewalk installation along Mignon Drive generally south of Warrenville Road. Now let's move to the Burke Avenue frontage. As you can see, well, first of all, the water main and sanitary sewer lines are available along Burke Avenue. They have been installed by the city and available for the future house to connect. There is, however, no roadway in place in front of the property, and there is no sidewalk. as you can see, there is Burke Avenue roadway improvements to the north and just at the south corner of the property, of the subject property. And the sidewalk gap is also stretches in front of the subject property as well as the property to the north. So from the staff perspective, it would be appropriate and desirable from the safety, public safety and traffic circulation, as well as public work service standpoint, to connect this road, as I put just for the illustration purposes, the roadway connection is illustrated in green and the sidewalk missing gap connection is illustrated in red. So from staff perspective, it would be desirable to potentially extend this improvement, roadway improvement, not just in front of the property, but also along the property that's to the north and the sidewalk to the south as well, just to eliminate the gap and provide the continuous pedestrian connection. Since this improvements extend beyond the frontage of the subject property, staff believes that it would be appropriate for the subdivider to enter in the subdivision improvement agreement with the city that would document the fair share financial obligation for the city's potential construction of this improvements at some point in the future. So in essence, the subdivision presents the city with the opportunity to document the terms of and financial obligation of the both parties, the applicant and the city, for potential roadway constructions should the city decide in the future that these improvements need to be constructed. So staff recommendation would be recommend the city council denial of the applicant's public improvement waiver request and direct staff and the city attorney to work on the terms of the draft subdivision improvement agreement that would outline these terms and financial obligations for the potential roadway improvements should the city decide in the future that such improvements need to take place. Now we'll take any questions. I also wanted to note that both applicants are on the call tonight.
Thank you. Yes, let's go to the alderman for questions and comments. Alderman Anderson.
So I guess my one question that I'd ask to the administrator about, but I could still use some clarity. So if the agreement that we're asking the city attorney to develop, I think is to say that if we don't do this improvement right now, there would not be a financial obligation now, but we're trying to hold in reserve the future ability to have a financial responsibility by the developer. And I just don't know, do we have any history of being able to develop such a program? Is that standard practice to be able to do? It feels a little bit that once we're on with the construction and the houses are there, they're sold, etc., that we've really lost a window for liability for the support in helping to build this improvement. So that's what I was just trying to get my head around. And I don't know if maybe our community development director could give me his insights on that.
Okay, which staff member wants this one?
I can speak up on this one since I've been around, and there is some historical situations in the community that are somewhat similar, although this is probably a more extensive financial obligation for, given the size subdivision that is being proposed than in those other previous situations. But the simplest and surest way for the city to ensure it has the financial contribution secured from the subdivider is to establish what the fair share amount is at this point in time and require the subdivider to actually contribute those funds at this time in advance of the city recording the plat of subdivision. There are, however, other options available to the city that we could potentially use. From a staff perspective, we don't know if those other options are truly viable in this situation, would be appropriate. We are interested in having those discussions with the city attorney. If the city council is in favor of moving forward with the staff recommendation, we will do just that and incorporate what we believe is appropriate and enforceable into the agreement in a manner that would probably be the least painful for the current property owner, but give the city confidence that we would be able to secure those funds either from the current property owners or any future owners of the property in the future should the city move forward with the project. So the brief answer is we don't have a firm answer to your question, Alderman Anderson, at this point in time, but it is something we certainly expect and plan to investigate thoroughly with the city attorney should we move forward and develop the draft agreement for your future consideration.
Okay, thank you. My one other comment to the developers or property owners, I just want to, thank you for your interest in continuing to develop Warrenville. This is a great part of a neighborhood, so I'm certainly open to doing everything that the city can do to help you accomplish your project while keeping these other goals in mind.
All right, if the property owners wanted to say anything, they can.
Yeah, hi, Frank, Jessica. I just wanted to say, Natalia, thank you. You've put a lot of time into this. And this is my first subdivision, so I'm learning here also. I think, we're just trying to build a home for our family here. And I know the other side of the lot, we already have somebody who wants to buy it. So that's going to help fund our home. I think our biggest concern isn't the road or the road going in or any of those things. It's all the variables at play. It's in front of our property, it's on the north property, and I don't even think the southern property has sidewalks either. So, I don't know how you guys are going to do that or how we're going to draft all those parts into an agreement. But also, this is something I did not plan for as far as financially. And so I'm hoping that, yes, I know something needs to be done and eventually it needs to go through. But hopefully it doesn't put a huge hole in my pocket to do that. I know I'm going to be liable for something, and I'm okay with that. I got to put in my fair share within reason, within a appropriate time frame. So I'm just hoping that we can get this done as soon as possible.
Into your comment about growing Warrenville and adding, I've actually grown up in Warrenville my entire life. If you were to move that screen a little bit to the south, I actually grew up right on Forest View. So I'm a long-term resident. I'm a nurse at the local hospital. If you were to walk the halls of, well, homeschool isn't there anymore, but I went to homeschool. So I've always wanted to build a home here in Warrenville, and you all know that the land is scarce here to build, and so it's exciting for me to be able to build a home where I've had so many memories. You guys talked about, the 4th of July stuff, and so it's just it's a great honor and privilege to be able to find a piece of land and like I said, grow our town even more.
Thank you. Yes, and I think as the Community and Economic Development Director said, we have done these kinds of things before with subdivisions, not usually on a scale quite this small, but there are reasonable practices that the city attorney will be able to draft so that people don't feel like they're not paying their fair share. Okay. Moving on to Alderman Ashaw.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the cost would be for one half of the street and only in front of their lot. The things that concern me are that the sidewalk or the street may not happen. I mean, if the city doesn't decide to do something, if the lots next to it don't develop, is it the recommendation that possibly a piece of sidewalk go in there and then we figure out later how to attach the missing links? Do we assess them at today's dollars based on an engineering evaluation of what the cost would be? I don't think they should be held hostage in a way that it's an open-ended cost of what it might be in 10 years if that's when the road goes in. I don't know how to do that. You know, Ron has some of those questions that he's trying to answer, and I appreciate that. But those are just some of my thoughts. I don't want to see him get stuck for something that just goes on forever. And I understand the obligation, but there's no willingness on the part of the city to put in their portion, our portion of the road, which would be on the east side, the east half. And there certainly isn't anybody that is developing a lot next to it that could contribute to any other portion of it. So based on that, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I just don't know the best way to do it in a fair way for the developer. So that's what I would like to hear from our community development department as they go through the process.
Okay. Does staff want to respond or?
I think from the community development department's standpoint, we will be assuming the council is comfortable moving forward as we're recommending. We will be coordinating with the applicant, the attorney, and we have had quite a few internal discussions with the Public Works Department, and we will be leaning on them to get their thoughts on the various aspects that you talked about. Those are all legitimate issues, concerns, and questions that we need to work through and be able to present an agreement that responsibly addresses all of those items in some form or another that the city can defend and feel it's fair and appropriate for both the applicant and for the community in the whole.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Berry.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused here. So the applicant is going to live on which property? The Mignon Drive entrance or on the Burke Avenue Drive entrance?
Burke, the Burke side.
Okay, so your driveway would be onto a unpaved street? Is that what I'm looking at? I'm not quite sure I understand what's going on.
Well, I mean, Burke hangs over, I think, 23-ish feet from the lot line over. I don't know what the requirements are for driveway access or private driveway. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into that yet. It could theoretically connect off of there.
I'm just concerned that the, spring rains and summer snows, winter snows, this is, you're going to be driving in mud. And, I just don't know how this is going to work. I guess that's my issue. Director Menzer, do you have any? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the applicant noted it, and it's hard to tell at the scale on the aerial photos that shown, but that corner where Roger turns south and turns into Burke Avenue, and the roadway extends a little past the south line of the southern property line of the applicant's lot. And if the city does not move forward and work to move the construction of that missing section of Burke before they move forward with their house construction, they would be required by the zoning ordinance to have a hard surface driveway, asphalt or concrete or some type of paving brick material. And they would just connect that down to right onto that corner at this point in time in a manner that would not prohibit the road from being extended to the north in the future. They wouldn't be driving across any dirt or mud, and as part of their engineering design for their particular lot development, they would have to show how their driveway would connect to that existing corner of Rogers and Burke, and that they wouldn't be creating any blocking any drainage. They may have to put a culvert underneath their driveway or maybe some small storm sewer improvements to make sure that they don't create a drainage problem in that area by connecting to Rogers Avenue and Burke Avenue. But that's really no different than any other single family home. The same type of engineering design would have to be provided for the lot that's going to face Mignon Drive to make sure that the drive connection between that lot and Mignon Drive doesn't create any drainage problems in the right of way either. So from a staff engineering perspective, I don't see any huge hurdles that would prevent them from just connecting right to the corner of Rogers Burke if that was the only alternative available. So now obviously they would have to come up with a house design and lay the house out on the property that it would make sense to have the driveway on the south side of the property rather than somewhere else on the property, but it's certainly feasible.
Okay, so then the driveway would not have to, you wouldn't have to create any variances because it wouldn't be too close to the other property. There would be enough room there to have I guess I can't remember what you call it, the open space between the other property and the driveway itself in order to fit that driveway to match up with that Rogers Avenue connection.
Yeah, like the applicant said, it's about somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 feet overlap.
Okay.
And in the zoning ordinance in this zoning district requires driveways to be set back 3 feet off of the property line. So that would give them a driveway that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 22 feet wide at the property line or out at Rogers Avenue, which should be sufficient. If that's what they had to do.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern. I just didn't want him to be trying to pull in and out on a mud road. Okay, thank you.
Alderman dabulos.
Okay, Natalia, can you put those colors back up there, the red sidewalk and the green street? Is Burke a private road?
No, that is the city right away and the city improvements.
Okay, so let me just get, I'm mostly interested in sort of what Alderman Henderson was starting to talk about, the precedent for this on these smaller properties. We have done this before. I mean, there are properties where we have, it just seems very strange to me that, I'm trying to think of other examples that I've lived here a while. So if you're building, we just don't put roads in. We require the people living on the road to help us build the roads. Or, I mean, like look at the people much farther north past the green part, with that little cul-de-sac in the middle and the houses on the east side. Did all those people contribute to the road?
No, the person, the developer that subdivided that property.
They do. Okay, and that's the common practice. Okay.
The property that as part of the subdivision, he put the road and the public improvements in so that then he could sell the lots to people, and the people would have access to the utilities and the sidewalks and everything else. They were an approved subdivision. Just to give you some point of reference, that's the section of Burke Avenue located immediately south of the south end of that little green section that's missing on this exhibit anyway. That section of Burke Avenue was probably installed maybe 10 years ago by the developer that subdivided the land located immediately south of the property that the current applicants are looking to subdivide into it's called the Olaf subdivision. And as part of that subdivision, that developer was required to construct that section of Burke Avenue between Rogers Avenue and Town Line Road. Prior to that subdivision happening, Burke Avenue didn't exist in between Town Line and Rogers and Town Line were both dead-end streets. So there, that's an example of a small subdivision. It's a little bigger than this one, but at that point in time, the developer put the whole road in and only served the properties on the west side of the road. And they also put the sidewalk in along the section of the street that it was directly adjacent to their subdivision. There is one house immediately south of the southeast corner. Yeah, the one that Natalia's got the pointer on now. That was not part of the Olaf subdivision. That house has been there for probably, maybe 30 years or so. And they used to have a driveway that just came off of the end of the dead end of Rogers. They're now connected to the new section of Burke Avenue that was constructed in front of the street, in front of their property. So there is precedent for that. There's other small subdivisions in the community where the developers it didn't make sense for the developer to put in a little section of sidewalk, and the city did collect a cash contribution from the developer that the city kept on file, so that when a larger sidewalk project made sense, where the city could connect not only construct the section of sidewalk in front of the subdivision that was being proposed at the time, but connected to a larger sidewalk network that the city had appropriate funding for that.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, the property owner, Mr. Manak.
So in regards to Olaf subdivision, so I have documentation that shows my lot and the two lots to the south of the large lot with the homes on it are all Olaf subdivision. So that's all of lot 13.
Now the lot 13 is this one.
Just go on record from a staff perspective. I'd be happy to take a look at that documentation, but I was here when the Olaf subdivision was processed. Dennis Rogers, who lives at the southeast corner of Rogers and Burke, was the developer of the Olaf subdivision. He bought the property from Fred Olafs, and Fred Olafs didn't own the property that you own at this point in time. That was owned by a completely separate person. So the subdivision plat that I recall being processed at that time, I don't believe included your property, the property you currently own.
Okay, I think we're getting a little bit off topic here.
Yes.
Well, no, this is good because now I understand a little bit more. So you don't put the road in if you buy a piece of property. You put the road in when you build a house on it. And what if it wasn't part of a subdivision? What if I just bought a piece of land myself?
This is a key difference is when it's the subdivision control ordinance of the city that requires certain public improvements when you subdivide the property. So it's actually the subdivision request that kicks in the requirement for certain public improvements. If there's existing lot and you just want to build a house, that those requirements do not apply.
Got it. That's great. That's good information, Natalia. Thank you. That clears a lot up. Okay. So we're asking for a donation for that part of the road in front of the property and that part of the sidewalk in front of the property, right? On Burke.
Well, at this point, the staff recommendation would be to let us work with the applicant and
Right.
to figure out what the financial obligation and shares should be assigned to each portion of certain public improvements, as opposed to waiving these public improvements at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's right. And just to be clear, I guess this is my comment time. It says very definitely in the memo that staff will present the agreement for city council input and approval at an upcoming meeting after this is negotiated and worked out with the land. So this is not our final discussion of this. This is our direction to staff to draft the agreement. All right, moving on to Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. The question I have is around, so if we deny the request to waive the public improvement and the public improvements, what is the next step as far as, obviously the submitters have to wait until something is drafted and then it has to get approved. So all the while they're sitting on this property. So I guess what kind of a timeline or what can we expect to kind of move this forward?
Well, we've been moving forward with this project since day one of the application, and there's a process in the subdivision control ordinance, and we just follow that process. So in this case, once we get, let's say the committee makes a recommendation tonight, it'll go to the city council. So at the next city council meeting, let's assume the city council accepts the committee recommendation. That gives us staff a green light to begin working with the city attorney and the applicant to negotiate the terms. And once that is negotiated, we will bring back the agreement to the future committee meeting. Now we'll have to look at the agenda, which committee meeting we still can get on the agenda to see if the agenda is light enough to accommodate this request and get on that agenda. And then the city council will have to make the committee will have to make recommendation to the city council.
I would offer, and I just offer from a staff perspective, I think a realistic time estimate, given everything that's going on, is it's probably going to, to coordinate with the city attorney, get something to the applicant, get it on a committee meeting, and get it back before the city council. You're talking at least a month.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I think I heard the applicants mention, they're understanding and willing to pay their fair share. I think as far as for this recommendation, to waive the request to deny. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that somebody has to pay for these improvements. So, and if we're looking at maybe a month to get that agreement finalized. I also agree with Alderman Ashauer that if the agreement is for a dollar amount that's agreed upon, and then when the time comes and it's 5-10 years down the road, I don't think we should hold them accountable for inflated prices of something that would have been done prior. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks. Alderman Widener.
I concur with staff recommendations, and I think the next steps are reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, I recommend what the staff is recommending and deny the waive right now, but immediately then meet with the attorney and the buyers or the builders to discuss the details on it and get back to us. That's the only way that anybody's going to get an answer or a solution to the problem, is to sit down and discuss it. So I'm all in favor of the recommendation.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
Alderman Widener moves to go along with the staff recommendation that the city council deny the applicant's blanket public improvement waiver request, and 2, direct staff and city attorney to draft a subdivision improvement agreement that would reflect the detailed staff analysis and conclusions contained in this memo. Is that it?
Yeah, the January 20th, 2021 memo from Director Cooper and Planner Delasova. Yes.
Right. I'll second that.
We have a motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Wilson. Let's have a roll call, please, clerk.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Critchell,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman dabulos,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much to the property owners, and we will see you back here again for the next time this comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good night. Moving on to item number 5, a discussion of filling aldermanic assignment vacancies left by former Alderman Bevere. And I will go to the city administrator for that.
Thank you. I'll start this item off and then leave it for discussion. What's being presented, as you just mentioned, Alderman Bevere stepped down from the council a couple of months ago. And since then, several folks have asked me, a couple of aldermen and some staff, what about all the positions or roles that he had played? What are we going to do about those? Typically, the council reassigns those, all the committee chairs and whatever other assignments aldermen have each after each annual biannual election every 2 years after the election, the first meeting or the second meeting in May. Because this was more of a midterm or near the end of the term before an unexpired term, we do have a vacancy. And one such role is the the vice chairman of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And there's some other various roles here. I will note too, I had missed it when we were marking up this sheet, but he also, it's noted but not underlined and highlighted like the others. He also worked on the Point Oak Drive extension with Alderman Ashour because that was in Ward 1. So we should make sure that's noted as another vacancy that could probably use another alderman working on that task. It's up to the council, of course, to decide if you wish to do that now. We could continue with just the one person or whoever's on there. I think there is somebody in all these other roles and make the best of it until May. Or it may be prudent to have the council do that now. I don't know how much anybody has thought about. I did have conversations with one alderman or communications with one alderman about some of the background on these, but it's up to the council, individual alderman, and of course the council to determine who they want to do these. And if you want to do it at this meeting, or if you want to put this off or wait until May, it's all up to the city council. Thank you.
All right. Well, I thought we would take these one at a time and just go through the list and discuss it as it seems appropriate. Starting with the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, the vice chairman position really only comes into play if the chairman is absent and we need someone to take over that role. So I guess the appropriate person to ask here is Alderman Berry. Do you anticipate any absences between now and May that would require a vice chairman for your committee?
No, I don't think so. I discussed this earlier because we had our pre-meeting this evening at 6:15, and I talked to the city administrator, and I said, I know I'm not going on any vacations at the moment. I'm not going anywhere, unfortunately, and so I should be here. And we only have really I think one more meeting besides this one before May 1st. So it would only be just 2 meetings. So if no one wants to volunteer for that at the moment, and they have some time to think about it until the elections occur in April. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, if anyone has any more comments to make on that or any other views to express, please.
This is Alderman Dabulos. I would be interested in volunteering for the vice chairman of this because I have not done anything with any of the committees as long as I've been on. That's one. And the second thing is, it's not really going to change next April when the election. It's going to be the same people. So I would normally wait, but I don't think the pool is going to get any different. So I wouldn't mind doing that just to have the experience of doing it.
Okay.
Unless somebody else wants to do it. I mean, because there's other opportunities here tonight. So if somebody really has their heart set on it, I'm.
Absolutely. All right. Anyone else have any other thoughts on that vice chairmanship? All right. Well, then I would make a motion to appoint Alderman dabulos as the vice chairman of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right.
Call the order.
Alderman Wilson?
I called the question.
Okay. Please call the roll, please, clerk.
Alderman dabulos?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Weidner?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, continuing the discussion, let's go down to the Economic Development Representative. Currently, those are Alderman Ashour and Mayor Brummel, and Fred was the alternate. Do Alderman Ashour or Mayor Brummel have any thoughts on whether we'll need an alternate before May, or if anyone else wants to express interest in becoming the alternate after May or before?
Mayor Brummel here. Alderman Ashour has been exemplary in his attendance in these meetings, so the alternate has not been an issue in the past. So it's not, I think, time critical that we find somebody for this right away. But if somebody's willing to take up that cause, that would be fine. But again, Alderman Ashour's attendance has been almost perfect.
All right. Do you think we continue to need an alderman to be the alternate? We don't have an alternate on all our committees.
Anybody interested?
I mean, I'll do it if nobody else wants to, but doesn't sound like much of a time commitment. It does sound like an interesting committee to be on, so I would certainly do it. Anyone else interested or has a comment? Or Mayor, do you think we need an alternate for this?
No takers? Do I move to recommend Alderman Goodman to fill that position?
Sure, if that's your motion. Do we have a second?
We have a second.
I'll second. Alderman Krischel.
All right, motion by Alderman Ashour, second by Alderman Krischel. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Well, you got me typing on the fly here. Just give me a second.
Go ahead.
Who was our second?
Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. All right. Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Weidner?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman dabulos?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is the Faywell Dam inspections and reports. Does anyone have any thoughts about this?
I'd be interested in getting the information from Alderman Bevere and following through on that.
Okay, I also saw a hand from Alderman Anderson.
Yeah, I was willing to step into this one. I mean, certainly if Alderman Ashour, would have more experience and interested, that's great. But if not, I don't know if this is getting ahead of your plan, Chairman Goodman, but these next 3 are all ones that I think were in Ward 1 and feel a responsibility for, and I'm happy to step into these roles. A, because they're the constituents of my ward, and B, it was my predecessor that was in those. So I'm happy to step into those. But if others are passionate about it too, I'm certainly open to the discussion.
Okay, my personal reaction to that is that sounds entirely appropriate if Alderman Anderson is willing to do the job. What do you think, Alderman Ashour?
That's fine. There's a lot of history with the dam, Alderman Anderson. That's the only reason. Fred has his contacts that he would fill in so that you can monitor the dam during flood periods. And it'll require some interaction with the county if there's a problem.
Right, maybe Alderman Anderson can reach out to former Alderman Bevere and educate himself and spread information as he goes along. I think that certainly when I became an alderman, one of the first things I did was reach out to some of my predecessors about some of the roles I took on and that they had done in the past, and that was very helpful to me.
Okay, so moved.
Just a comment.
Yes.
Alderman Ashour, can we just include the other two, which would be the Point Oak utility extension and Rigi and Barclay dedication as part of this motion?
Is that all right, Alderman Wilson?
I'm sorry?
I think, yeah, Alderman Wilson was just making the motion. Is that what you intended, Alderman Wilson, for your motion?
Yep. Yes.
All right, so just to be clear for the clerk, the motion is to have Alderman Anderson as the Faywell Dam inspections and reports, the alternate for the Point Oak Drive Utilities Extension, and the second alderman on the Rigi Road Barclay Avenue Committee.
I'll second.
All right, have you got that, clerk?
Hold
No.
on.
Okay. Take your time.
Alderman Widener seconds.
Yes, motion by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Widener.
Thank you. And the 3 positions are what again?
The Faywell Dam inspections and reports, the Point Oak Drive Utilities Extension, and the Rigi Road Barclay Avenue dedication.
Okay.
Motion by Wilson, second by Widener. And whenever you're ready, please call the roll.
Okay. Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman dabulos?
Aye.
Motion carries. Alderman Goodman, we can't hear you. You are muted.
I'm sorry. I'll start again. Moving on to item number 6, the consideration of the purchase of city-branded polo shirts for city volunteers due to the cancellation of both the 2020 and the 2021 volunteer appreciation dinners, and will go to the city administrator.
Thank you. This request or recommendation, suggestion, idea, as you will, came from, I believe it was one of the Plan Commission ZBA members, Tim Cosgrove, to the mayor. I said I would put it on the agenda and present it. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes with the presentation, but the information's in front of you. We had to cancel the 2020 volunteer event because COVID was just ramping up at that time, and everything was a stay-at-home order and shut down. This year, there's no way to be able to have a large gathering to show appreciation and have the dinner that we previously had with 70 or 80 people in attendance. So seeing as we're not going to be able to expend the money each year, which is about $2,000 each year, the suggestion was made, I think it's a nice idea, that we provide item of apparel to make it simpler with all the volunteers. Instead of all the different options that were offered to the employees and the elected officials, we're suggesting the polo shirts. Now there's an example in the packet of how they appear. I think you all had images of those along with a few other items when in the fall, when the alderman could also pick an item this last year. The question came up today, and I was going to just suggest that we extend, if the council's approval of this, that we extend that also to the folks that get elected in April. They weren't, of course, around. There's a couple of positions, including we have a new alderman who came on board right after that, that adding one item to allow them to also get in April after the election may be a nice gesture. At minimum, you could have a, well, we've got one alderman that's new already, a new clerk. I know there's a contested mayoral election, but also possibly the treasurer's position may be appointed depending on what happens with that. So it would be up to 4 would be the maximum. That's an add-on to what I'm suggesting tonight, and is up to the council. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or let the mayor speak if he has anything to add to the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So in your view, would there need to be a change to the motion to accommodate those 4 additional items that you've just referenced?
I think that would be good. It's a very minor cost. It's not material, but I think that would be, it's always better to have it transparent and everything be clear. And I think, again, it'd be a nice gesture for the folks that would come on board and miss the opportunity last October, or you could have them wait till next October, but they would be representing the city at certain things, and it would be, I think, a good gesture. Thank you.
Okay, so then if I could ask whoever makes the motion to add at the end of the sentence, and elected or appointed city officials in April.
I was suggesting just the new ones that are coming on board because you all have gotten those already. We wouldn't be buying for everybody.
Yes. Okay, and newly elected or appointed city officials in April. Okay, so just so we've got that in the motion. Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like one of our aldermen is modeling a very nice looking City of Warrenville polo shirt. Thank you, Alderman Krischel. You chose just the right wardrobe for this discussion. Okay, let's go through the list to see if there are any questions or comments. Alderman Anderson.
No questions or comments.
Alderman Ashour.
No questions or comments.
Alderman Berry.
I have no questions, but I do have one comment. I think it's a very nice gesture for the volunteers, since we weren't able to have a luncheon for them. It was a very good idea. So thank you.
And Alderman Dabulos.
No questions or comments right now, thanks.
Thank you. My only comment is that I'm sure that there are some volunteers who would rather have a shirt than go to a dinner. So, yeah, should be nice for some of our volunteers. Alderman Krischel.
No questions, no comments, other than I never thought I would be considered a model. So thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, Alderman Weidman.
No questions or comments, just a thank you to Tim Cosgrove for his great idea.
Yes, Alderman Wilson.
No comment.
All right, would anyone like to make that motion as amended by the city administrator?
Alderman Ashour, recommend the city council authorize the one-time issuance of city polo shirt to city volunteers who would normally be invited to the city volunteer appreciation dinner, and up to 4 additional shirts for elected or appointed officials.
Second.
Yes, I think it's supposed to be newly elected. Yes. Have we got that, clerk? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Christian,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman dabulos,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashaw.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, consideration to enter into a 5-year lease contract with Axon Camera for police body cameras, video storage, camera maintenance and replacement, and redaction software. We'll go to Police Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm going to ask Assistant Administrator White if she'd be so kind as to put up a PowerPoint that I've prepared for the presentation tonight. You have that, Christina? It was sent over to Kevin. Should be on the shared drive. Can I share my screen or no?
Yeah, let me make you a presenter, Chief.
Okay,
Hold on.
thank you.
Okay, you should now be able to share your screen.
Okay, the first one I'm going to do is a PowerPoint. I can get it up here in a second. And here we go. All right. I'm going to give you a brief overview of this, and then I will be more than happy to take any questions that you'll have. But the issue becomes is why body cameras, why in Warrenville, and why now? Well, the now part of it is that there was recent legislation that is going to be signed by the governor, which will require all police departments, no matter the size of them, to have these by July 1st of 2025, okay? Why try to do this now and not wait 3 years? Well, that issue centers around that, and I've had talks with the city administrator on this and my command staff, and it'll be that the day that you'll regret that you don't have these will be the day after the incident happens, that something significant will occur, and you'll wish that you had these for the issue of transparency and public trust. And I said when that event occurs, because I try to be a pragmatist and say in today's society, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. So I think it's a good idea. I think that these help reduce a lot of the anxiety with our officers when there are complaints made against them. I have every faith and confidence in my tenure that I've been here. The number, if you even want to call them complaints, that I have had of against an officer have been basically non-existent. If a citizen gets a traffic ticket, they're unhappy that they got the ticket and may question why they didn't get a warning. But it isn't anything about the officer's conduct. I believe the mayor, even at one time, we had an individual who reached out to the mayor and indicated that the officer used all types of foul language when they were stopped, and at that time the dashboard camera was a saving grace, and it showed that the officer did absolutely nothing wrong. And I think that these will even be more so because they're actually on the officer's body and they record what's going on when they're up at the window of a car or when they're dealing with a citizen. So that's basically the reason that I'm interested in doing these. I'd rather do them sooner than later. So let's take a look at the costs and the package breakdown. And there's 2 documents in here. One of them gave us a price with a discount that was $203,000 and change. But if you'll notice, it expired December 31st of 2020. So the approximated cost that we're dealing with right now would be a 5-year contract, because we don't buy any of these materials. These are all leased, which would be the cameras, the hardware, the software, the storage and the maintenance of the data, the licenses, and also the redaction software. So included with this is a complete maintenance package with, if these cameras are broken or need servicing, that would be provided in the cost of the contract. Additionally, there would be 1 camera for every officer on the police department, including our community service officers. There would be adequate charging stations. We would have a few spares in the event that one went down. And they're also replaced every 2.5 years. So the first year of the contract comes in at $76,542, and years in the FY23 through 26 budget come in at $33,250, which would be a cost of $209,540. Now, when we got this price, and you'll notice on that other broken down, the detailed breakdown sheet, there was an amount in there indicating taxes, I believe, of $759 and change. The tax was put in there because we did not have at that time a number for our tax exemption that we could give them. So they included the taxes. Obviously, we are tax exempt. So if you take that amount out, it comes out to $208,778.92. But in full disclosure, I wanted to put the $209,540 up there. Now, we would use our seized asset funds, which I believe Finance Director Dahlstrom indicated to me was somewhere in the area of $214,000 to $217,000, which would cover, excuse me, the first 5 years of the contract. After that, obviously, if there were more seized assets that came in, those could be used, and this was the advice that we got from the city attorney, that we could use these. Other than that, it would probably come out of the general fund, but these are going to be mandated one way or another, so it's something that we're going to have to contend with. So why did we pick Axon, or why am I in favor of this particular brand? There's a couple of others out there. First of all, I believe that they're the largest supplier of police body cams in the United States. I believe they're also the longest company that is providing these. When we look at them, the agencies that they're servicing right now are the Chicago Police Department, Aurora, Naperville, West Chicago, Roselle uses them, Woodridge. I believe Wheaton right now is in the testing phase with these, and all the information that I've gotten, and I've visited several of these departments, is they're very, very happy with the system, the durability, the reliability, the quality of the picture and the audio recordings, and also the redaction software. The battery life on these is approximately 14 hours. It's a 64 gig storage. It's a MPEG-4 video format. The drop test results for these would be withstand a 6-foot fall in ambient temperatures, which they range in the area of 55 to 70 degrees. If it's below 30 degrees, they're looking at 4 feet that it can withstand that type of a drop. One thing I think you should note, and I will tell you when they talk about redaction software, this would happen if an officer was, say, sent to a disturbance that happened in a public place, a restaurant, a park, what have you. Now, he's going to capture people that are not involved in the incident. So you have 2 individuals fighting. Well, legally, if this were FOIA'd, we would have to redact, pixelate, or what have you. I'm sure you've seen it on the news when they're fogged over, the faces of the non-participants in the incident. What this will do is basically when you point to one face and draw a line, it redacts everything within that group instead of having to go each face individually. So it's a real time-saving measure. that would be better for our staff when we're doing this. One thing to note is that there has not been in the agencies I talk to, there's not a tremendous number of FOIA requests for the body cam footage. So it also interfaces with the DUGIS system that is in service right now, where we can send this body camera footage to, the state's attorney's office or other agencies or what have you. Obviously, from a crime reduction standpoint, I think it's a great thing if you do have something happen and you're looking for an individual, if they escape from police custody, they run away or what have you. It's something great that you could put out there, that you're looking for this individual. If we want to get public input or public support in trying to help us with this. So some of the other key features of the Axon body cam, clear frame playback, and that reduces the motion blur, so it's a more detailed playback. The unit itself, which is about the size of a deck of cards, has 4 microphones, which will capture clear audio. We get alerts, live maps, and streaming. Now, individuals that they say are permission, that would be myself, the sergeants, the deputy chiefs. If I were at home, for instance, and there was an incident that was occurring or had just occurred, and I want to review that body cam footage, I can do that on a laptop computer or my cell phone. Additionally, these are something that will be reviewed randomly by the shift supervisors to make sure that our officers are in compliance, which I'm sure they will be. But we do this as a matter of, again, demonstrating to the public how we can self-police ourselves and the transparency that we have with that. It's wireless activation, it's compatible with the Axon Signal wireless activation technology. And the reason, this is another reason that I really like this is proprietary and only available through Axon. When these cameras are turned on, they're done in a number of ways. One would be manually, where the officer pushes a button and the camera would turn on. Now the camera has, and we can set this at the agency, up to a 2-minute buffer. So from the time that camera is turned on, it has already held up to 2 minutes of video, not audio. The audio wouldn't start until the actual camera is turned on. But you could get 2 minutes of prior video that was stored before the camera was turned on. So you can turn it on manually. When the officer would activate their overhead emergency lights, it would automatically turn on. If the officer were to draw their firearm or their taser from the holster, there is a switch on there that would automatically turn the unit on. And they will turn on if they're within 100 feet of like another police vehicle or another camera that has been activated. So if a number of officers are all going on a call, a burglary in progress, something of that nature, and one officer's camera is on, if another officer is running up there and for some reason wouldn't have turned his camera on, it will automatically turn on so that the incident will be preserved. We don't have to provide any type of storage capabilities within the city. Basically, the officers would come in at the end of their shift. When they dock the unit in the charging station, they would upload the video, and it would be in cloud storage, which is safely encrypted and would be available to us for review. And if we want to memorialize it on like a compact disc or something like that, we'd be able to do that. We go on to the next slide. They're designed very durably to withstand tough weather conditions. Obviously, jobs that police officers have, they're going to get bumped around a little bit, and this is something you have to make sure that you have professional quality, very durable equipment. Okay, the display screen, which is on the top, if the officer were looking down at the unit, and they're usually mounted on the chest. There's a number of different ways that an officer can mount these. And if we decide to go forward with this and we get a tryout, that we would probably do a 30-day trial with these. They can mount them either up on their shoulder lapels, okay, or they can mount them on the front of their vest carriers. They can do it with clips, or it can be done with magnetically, where you basically would have a magnet on the back of the camera and another magnet that would be underneath the body armor that they would, clamp together. So the display screen tells the officer about the brightness. It auto adjusts, and it would be as far as it would not compromise the officer's safety, as far as being so bright that it would affect their vision. And we talked a little bit about the auto redaction. A closer look, it'll just give you some of the controls on there, where you have the power buttons, you have the location where the camera lens is, and also where the 4 microphones are on the unit. Okay. And in the last slide, you'll see it has the mounting hardware on the back of the unit, where you would be able to mount it. So I would be happy to answer any questions for you, but again, I think this is something that I would rather be involved sooner than later. A couple of reasons. I think that the prices will continue to go up. The other issue is that with every police agency in the state having to get these, I can only imagine what the delay might be in getting your order filled for the equipment. So anything I can answer for you, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, Chief. We will start with Alderman Anderson.
I just want to thank Chief Toronto for bringing this forward. I'm not an expert, nor likely will I ever be an expert on what's the right camera to buy or what are the right feature functions. I'm going to trust that you've done your research and you've picked the right one for our team. But I think your point of not waiting shows great leadership, and I think the community would expect this kind of leadership from us. So it clearly is a going forward operational expense that we're going to have to figure out how to manage. But I'm supportive of not waiting to be pressed by legislation to do this.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
I agree with the recommendation. One bad lawsuit can cost more than this whole 5-year program easily. We've been through that. I support it.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Berry.
I do support this. I'm glad we're going forward. I'm glad we're not waiting. I think it's something that is necessary to protect not only our officers, but also for the citizens that are out there also. So thank you very much for looking into this and doing all the research. Thank you.
Great. Alderman dabulos.
Yes, thank you, Chief, for all of this. Alderman Anderson was commenting on your research, and let me just say, Chief Toronto always does his research very thoroughly and completely and makes it easier for us. It's just what he does. And I've been hoping this would happen for quite a few years to protect our officers and make things clearer. And so I'm glad it's happening, and I'm very glad that we're doing it now. So thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks. I too have been in favor of this program for a long time. I do have several questions. Starting with the 4-foot drop testing that you mentioned, Chief, and if they were putting it on a shoulder clip or on their vest. I know some of our officers are very tall, very large officers, so will they have a way to lower the fastenings if the weather is cold so that it's only 4 feet
You know, we have to rely on the manufacturer's testing that was done with that. Our saving grace is that, again, with this contract for the equipment, and it covers the maintenance, including breakage or damage. So in the event that, and you can never predict what may happen, if the officer got into a scuffle, they slipped and fell, something happened, the person grabbed it off of their uniform and threw it or something like that, it would be covered. It would be of no cost to the city, and we'd get a replacement camera.
Okay, that's very reassuring. Secondly, if the vendor is going to be storing the data, I know we have statutory obligations to keep data. You talked about FOIA. Will it be difficult to end this contract and move to another vendor down the road?
No, the data belongs to us. So it's owned by the city of Warrenville. However, we pay the vendor to store it for us in an encrypted manner, and that's what they will be doing. But if for some reason we decided to go with the XYZ company, depending on what their storage requirements are, there's a couple of these companies right now that require the municipality to store all the data, which means servers and all of the other equipment that goes along with that. But that would certainly be able to be transferred to the city because it's our data.
Okay, and the software to access that data isn't proprietary? I mean, do we know we'll still be able to see the data in a way that we can use it if we do have to take it elsewhere someday?
Yes, the actual software to access it is not proprietary. The proprietary portion is the redaction software that is solely developed by Axon, and they control it. So if we did go with a different vendor, we would still be able to redact faces, but we would have to do it in a different way.
Gotcha. Okay, as long as we can still access and use the data and meet our statutory obligations. One thing that occurred to me based on a course I attended at an IML conference a few years ago on police body cameras was whether or not the new law that we think the governor is about to sign requires taser cameras too. Because the litigation and liability issues that were raised by taser cameras was pretty daunting in the presentation I saw from a police chief and an attorney who had represented a lot of cities in officer-involved incident litigation, because it makes this non-lethal use of force, a very common de-escalation technique, look extremely damaging, and there can be liability issues associated with constantly filming taser usage. So I just wondered if that's something that we have to do under the new law.
No, there isn't. What there is that, and these policies we have had in place in Warrenville for years, at least 5 years. And the first policy is you have to do a use of force report on every incident where the officer does anything besides use loud verbal commands or simply performing a non-combative subject with handcuffing, okay? So if the officer uses pepper spray, a taser, their baton, they go with open-handed control techniques. They have to fill out a use of force report. That has to be reviewed by the supervisor. Right now, any other officer that would be there is listed as a witness officer. They would be interviewed. If we had video from a squad car camera, we would review that, and that would be attached to that use of force report by means of a compact disc. And the new law requires it to send this to the Illinois State Police every year. The policy that we had in place, we didn't have to do that, and we didn't send it anywhere. We just kept it because I use it as a tracking method to see if officers had an issue with use of force. We have a duty to render aid, which is something that in Warrenville we've had with our use of policy forever, that if, God forbid, you have to use a firearm or a person's injured because of the police use of force, we have a duty to render aid to that individual. If you saw in that Laquan McDonald shooting, and that was one thing that really jumped out at me all the years I've been in law enforcement, that individual was shot, was on the ground. There were a group of police officers there, and I did not see one that went to render any type of aid, which is not something doable. So that's really all that we have. There's nothing in there that says with the taser. The models that we have right now, I have seen some models that have it. I think the body camera is a better option because in my limited knowledge, I think it's going to give you more information prior to the taser actually being deployed. If that makes sense to you?
It does make sense. I mean, I think the IML presenter that I saw, recommended very strongly against the taser cam models. So to that degree, you agree, but I guess I think you said it was a trigger on the holster for the taser or something, where the camera would be activated if the taser is picked up?
Correct. Things happen very quick. Very quickly in police work. This would be in the event that an officer gets out of the car. They're going to walk into the Dunkin' Donuts to get a cup of coffee, and they would not have the camera on at that point. And if somebody would suddenly attack them, and the officer was not able to get to the camera to turn it on, and yet they had to use the taser, as soon as that taser would clear the holster, then yeah, the camera would be on. It would be our policy that these cameras would be on for every call, other than what I term community caretaking issues. We're helping a person on a disabled car. Somebody stops us and asks us for directions. The officer's doing a walkthrough of a park, something like that. Obviously, these cameras would not be on where anybody would have a normal expectation of privacy. If the officer is in the police station on a meal break, if they're using the restroom, something like that. But other than that, we would have the cameras on, filming.
Yeah, okay, well, that leads me perfectly to my last question, which is the 2-minute buffer, or whatever you said. I think you said you could set it to some other particular time.
Up to 2 minutes.
So, that indicates to me that it's always recording, even if it isn't.
That's correct.
Storing that, and it's sort of overwriting it every 2 minutes as it goes along. But combined with the feature that allows a person with permission, like the chief, to sort of tune in live, then it does raise some potential privacy concerns, which are obvious. So what sort of policies would you say we already have in place, or that you would recommend to deal with the privacy concerns?
Well, the issue is this: any place that we would not use the camera if a person called us up and they wanted to report a burglary at their home, and we knock on the door and they open the door and we ask to come in so we can take the report, we would say, I'm filming right now on a body camera. Is that okay with you? And if the person says, yeah, that's fine, then we would continue to film. If they say, no, I don't want you to, then we would shut the camera off. But it would be on tape that the person wanted the camera shut off. If, however, in that same situation, we get a call of a domestic disturbance and the officer goes up to the door and they're yelling and screaming or whatever is going on in there, then we would leave the camera on. That'd be considered exigent circumstances. And it also may be of evidentiary value if there is an arrest made of what was captured on that camera.
Yes, I understand the policy that you're talking about when the camera is turned on, but I'm talking about the 2-minute buffer before it's turned on, which indicates that it's always recording. So I just want to know, in a little bit of description, what sort of privacy policies we have to deal with those privacy considerations, especially if somebody else like you or an officer with permission can tune in live and do the live streaming feature that you described earlier.
Well, if we do a live stream, it would only be on things that were captured. So I can't view anything that would be buffered if the camera was off, so to speak. Deciding on what the buffer should be, the majority of police departments that I've talked to go between 30 seconds and a minute. I mean, 2 minutes would really kind of be a long buffering period. Most of them use 30 seconds to a minute. But if you're asking me if that officer's just they're driving their car, they're on patrol, and I decide that I want to view a video, I can only view what has been captured. I can't view anything that is buffered.
Okay, so that in addition to our own policies to protect people's privacy, there are technological limitations that also protect people's privacy.
That's correct.
That's excellent. All right. Thank you so much for your clear explanations.
You're very welcome.
That is my list of questions, and we will go on to Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. I have nothing that has not been answered yet.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for your excellent report and thorough research that you conducted regarding this. I think everything is covered, and it's absolutely a new piece of equipment that law enforcement needs in order to carry out their daily routines. So thanks for your involvement and leadership on this.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I have no further comment other than it's good to be proactive. So thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mayor
And I know
Brummel, I have a comment.
Mayor Brummel, please go ahead.
Thank you. We've had a number of conversations over the years, Chief, about the potential here, and there was always a number of logistical reasons and technical reasons that we weren't quite ready to move. I really appreciate the fact that you've been keeping a close eye on the technology, close eye on our neighbors' usage of this particular company's product, and the confidence that you bring forward this particular option for us makes me confident that it's going to be a worthwhile addition to what we're doing in the city of Warrenville in terms of transparency. In fact, looking at your proposal for the budget, transparency comes up many, many times in your description of why this is a good thing for us. It's a good thing for our officers. It's a good thing for the citizens. It clearly is part of the policing of the future. And again, you place us right at the cutting edge of doing the right thing in terms of policing. And I greatly appreciate that. And I know our citizens do. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Widener moves to recommend to the City Council to approve a 5-year contract with Axon for body-worn cameras.
Second by Alderman Wilson.
Thank you very much. Clerk, are you ready for the roll call?
Yes. Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Dabulos?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, it's the discussion of the fiscal year 2022 citywide work plan, and we'll go to City Administrator Coakley.
Thank you. As committed, our staff is including the proposed work plan on every agenda. So I will just leave it at that and we'll work to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, we've had this item a few times now, so why don't I just open it up, and if anybody has any comments, please state your name and then ask your question. Okay, we don't need a motion on this item. So we will go on to item number 9, which is the informational updates on administration, finance, and the police department fiscal year 2021 work plans and decision packages. We'll go through the list to see if there are any questions or comments on these. Alderman Anderson.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions or comments?
Thank you. Alderman Barry.
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman dabulos.
Yes, quick question. The new decision packages are bolded? With those initials and numbers? That's how they're indicated? I mean, these aren't last year's decision packages. These are the new ones, or is that going to come out in the budget book?
No, this is last year's. This is the update on
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. Okay.
the items that have been completed and the items that they're still working on.
Right, but they are bolded with those. They're bolded at the end when you tell them. Then there's you know what I mean? Oh, never mind. I'll call you later. I don't want to keep everybody. It's fine. I don't have any questions.
Okay, yeah, the new decision packages to be decided on are not on this item. Assistant City Administrator White?
I think Alderman Dabulos is referring to the highlighted yellow and bold items in the FY21 update work plans, and those are just indicating that that particular item did have a decision package in fiscal year 21 that correlates with the item.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions. Alderman Krischel.
Nothing for me either. Thank you.
Alderman Widener.
Nothing. Thank you.
And Alderman Wilson.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, that was an informational only item. I don't need a motion. At the time of the printing, we didn't have any commendations, but Chief Toronto, please confirm that there aren't commendations for tonight's agenda.
We had a couple of letters of thank you for our assistance based on our officers responding on a merit call out. One was a SWAT call out that they had in Woodridge where they needed forensic evidence technicians, and we responded to that. And another one was for a fatal vehicle accident in Lisle, and we received, a commendatory letter, a thank you letter for that. A couple of just quick updates. Officer Cassandra McCurris has been selected by Merit to participate as a major crash reconstruction officer. All these expenses for her training will be paid for by Merit, and this is in addition to her being a forensic evidence technician. So Officer McCurris has demonstrated a real aptitude and a keen ability for this type of work, and she's been a real asset to Merit with this. Also, two of our officers, Officer Law and Officer Bell, that are in Celia, will be graduating on the 26th of February. So a few more weeks for them, I believe 5 weeks. And the mayor swore in our newest officer, which is Officer Colin Pickens, on the 20th. And he is currently in field training. And that's all I have.
That's quite a lot. I'm very happy to hear it. All right, that's all of our agenda, and I have only a need for one last motion.
Alderman Krischel, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Krischel, second by Alderman Wilson. Roll call, please.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Barry?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much for your hard work, everybody.
Thank you, Leah. This was good.